Dumelang. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Musidi Mokhele. I am the General Manager of the National Press Club. National Press Club is a body of journalists and media professionals established 45 years ago, initially as the Pretoria Press Club. We are gathered here this morning, still morning, to launch the National Transport Month together with our Honorable Minister as well as the Deputy Minister. So for those who would like to follow the proceedings virtually, we are streaming on our Facebook page, National Press Club, so you can follow the proceedings there. I'm not going to talk much given that the Minister needs to honor another engagement post this one. But we also want to acknowledge our host, SA Taxi, for partnering with us on this occasion. So I'm going to invite our host from SA Taxi to come and officially welcome us, Mr. Matzidikani Muswani, who is the board member here at SA Taxi. If you can please join us in front.
Good morning, Program Director, Honorable Minister of Transport, Mayor Sindisiwe Chikunga, the Deputy Minister of Transport, Mangcu, the MECs present here today, the Director General Advocate, Mlau, chairpersons of the board, CEOs of entities, DDGs, the COO of the business, Pierre Bouvet, the executive head responsible for operations, Roads Kent, the president of Santaco, Secretary General of Santaco, Date Kumbu, National Press Club members led by the Secretary, Date Machete, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol is observed. Kalina regetswala pampiditse mara ke matsidikanye. Ke mazwi ka seraeto. Wa go tswa seleteng sa sekhukhune. Program Director, as we move into October and what the Minister is launching today, I'd like to steal 2 minutes of your time, and I know we are pressed for time. We've had a rough September as a country. I think yesterday we lost a seasoned official and an elder who served this country with distinction, Ndate Aziz Pahad. We also lost, as a country, an activist, Ausizoleka Mandela. We equally lost Prince Mangcu Buthelezi, Ntwana Phinda Ingena. But we also lost a philanthropist and a businessman, Ndate Agerman. Program Director, it would be reckless of me if I don't also, Minister, recognize the children that we lost at Philippi as a result of the floods that ravaged Western Cape. We are here, Program Director, Honorable Minister, as SA Taxi to welcome you to our business. I've said it earlier and I will say it now, Minister, that we are grateful to have you visiting this business once more. Because this is the second time, Minister, that you visit these shores. To us, it means, Minister, you love this industry. And we can only say, Minister, as a business and as a board, that we love this industry. We have had, like everybody else, Mampumi, like everybody else, COVID affected us. COVID ravaged the business and the industry. But what we have said at board, Minister, is that this business remains committed to this industry. We're happy, Minister, that we have a strong shareholder in Santaco. We're holding hands with Santaco through these rough seas. We also want to acknowledge, Minister, some of the funders, forefront funders that have helped us survive the toughest of times. Amongst them, it's Standard Bank of South Africa. Whilst I'm talking about the funders, Minister, and it's a plea, Minister, it's a plea that we seek your assistance, Minister, and obviously of your colleagues, to help us, Minister, source local funding. It is difficult to source local funding, Minister, in South Africa for this industry. It is extremely difficult. Yet the minibus taxi industry, Minister, remains the backbone of public transport in this country. And this business, Minister, remains the forefront leader in extending funding to majority displaced, disenfranchised operators. So it is our plea, Minister, that as we celebrate 2 decades of being in this industry, we can only see, Minister, the next decade and the other decades through local funding. So it is really our plea, Minister. President Director, as I close, during COVID, Minister, we extended, and I'll quickly share in the numbers. Our spend in assisting the industry manage and navigate around COVID, we spent 20 million, just under 20 million, Minister, on vaccines and PPEs. The financial spend, Minister, that we extended to the taxi industry totaled just under 400 million, which included payment relief and extension of terms for the taxi industry. Minister, I pointed out earlier that COVID impacted everybody. The taxi industry was not included. We paid, Minister, over 300 million on credit life to operators who had unfortunately been affected and passed as a result of COVID. So we made sure, Minister, that we try as best as we can to protect the livelihoods of the industry. Minister, we note the efforts of your department of extending relief to the taxi industry. It is noted, it is acknowledged, and we are asking, Minister, that those kind of assistances, Minister, they shouldn't be stopped. Program Director, allow me to descend the platform, but thank you for the opportunity, and again, thank the esteemed guests that have made it to the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that warm words of welcome. And I need to emphasize, especially for the members of the media that are present this morning, that the Minister, Ms. Sindisiwe Chikunga, as well as the Deputy Minister, have actually brought along some of their partners in the transport sector. So I'm sure there'll be an opportunity to engage some of them post the formal session as well. Next on the program is Mr. Franz Machate, who will officially introduce the minister.
Thank you, Program Director, the fellow Executive Committee member, our General Manager at the National Press Club, Sindisiwe. Honorable Minister, Mayor Sindisiwe Chikunga, Ntate Deputy Minister Mangcu, the MECs, members of the executive councils of various provinces that are here, if they are, CEOs of various transport entities, the invited guests, my dear colleagues, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, let me play it safe and say all protocol observed. One of the key mandates of the National Press Club is stimulating public, philosophical, and democratic debates in support of the promotion and advocacy of the freedom of expression and that of the media for a democratic Republic of South Africa. That is one of our key mandates. So it is for this reason that today we are here hosting this discussion session to fulfill that mandate as the National Press Club. I have been given a very difficult task by the National Press Club Executive Committee to actually introduce our very important guest. And you'll hear why I say it's a very important, difficult task. I say this because the magnitude of the responsibility bestowed on Honorable Minister Chikunga by the President of South Africa, President Cyril Ramaphosa. It's a very mammoth one. It's a very big responsibility in the sense that we are all here because of that responsibility. I think you'll all agree with me. If it was not because of that responsibility, none of you will be here. Whether you walked, you drove, you flew, or you cycled, it is because of the responsibility that is bestowed on the minister. All of us gathered here, we all agree that even at this venue where we are, I think you can hear even the sounds of the cars moving outside. That there are a number of cars, taxis, buses, trucks that are moving outside. So this will then form part of the responsibilities that I'm saying are very important. So these vehicles, the aeroplanes and everything, they are the ones that are keeping the wheels of our democracy, the wheels of our economy in motion. So the availability of transportation and the entire transport sector, it's one important responsibility. So goods are being carried to different destinations on road, railway, and other forms of transportation like aircrafts, ships, and thanks to this ministry. Program Director, allow me, as the Secretariat of the National Press Club, to introduce and welcome the tough lady behind all these issues that I have described. A leader who has enormous task of driving the economy of this country. Our mother, the Minister of Transport, Mayor Chikunga. Let me invite you all, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome Minister Chikunga to the podium with warm round of applause. Minister, here are your stakeholders in driving the economy of the country forward. Members of the media, the fourth estate, we are all yours, Minister. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We may be seated. Program Director, Deputy Minister of Transport, Honorable Lisa Mangcu, MECs that have joined us here, responsible for transport, SA Taxi Industry, SA Taxi Santaco, President of TASA, Director General of the National Department of Transport, Advocate James Mlau, members of the EXCO in the Department of Transport, board chairpersons and CEOs of our state-owned companies, and members of our boards, esteemed members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, please also allow me to say all protocol is observed. I was asked to address a topic given to me, and the topic is the role of the transport system in the recovery of the economy. It's a very broad topic. I will try to cover what I think is important. But first, we wish to thank the National Press Club for the invitation to come and explain ourselves, as it were, to explain what we do and what we have been doing to contribute meaningfully to the economic recovery craved by the majority of South Africa's people, to rise from the downward social and economic spiral we have edged towards, and thanks to the pandemic. This morning, we came to this forum to account to our beloved nation through you as both the people's collective mouthpiece and an important conduit of our public outreach and awareness needs, the latter of which can neither be satisfied by any posture of self-sufficiency or political vanity on our part, nor can our relations ever be allowed to be antagonistic. We continue to believe in the important role of the media and support you, knowing of the great benefits many have allowed to accrue to South Africans as this natural and largely symbiotic relationship has been allowed to grow. We have therefore always acknowledged the need to strengthen a critically important relationship we have built between us over the years, not only today, but even in the past. In this sixth administration, we have sought not only to correct our ways and provide solutions with greater impact to the people and the economy, but we have done so with your ever-critical eye and many times from a constructive perspective, which has kept us on, in fact, doing our work and, of course, on our feet. This invitation also coincides with an event, which is the launch of our October Transport Month, which is perhaps already known to many in this room, and perhaps in just a few hours, we will be launching it formally. Today's launch sets forth the transport sector's commemorative activities that will celebrate our achievements across the sector throughout October, starting with the celebrations of anniversaries of our 6 state companies, 2 of which celebrate their 30th anniversary this year, with the remaining 4 celebrating 25 years since inception. Ours today is to highlight to you those areas in which we have managed to contribute effectively towards South Africa's socio-economic progress and growing the economy. The sector also contributes to social development when people are able to meet their everyday needs, connect with each other, and do this through affordable and accessible public transport. The social impact of transport for South Africa's poorest communities is often understated. According to the Development Bank of Southern Africa's examination of the effects of poor infrastructure in education, transport, and communities, and they think we are indeed understating the importance of transport in poor communities. The DPSA argues, and we agree, that when a community lacks transport infrastructure like roads, it means that people from that community are unable to access centers of economic activities or access to healthcare facilities or institutions of learning. This then affects the quality of life for those communities. This informs the need for the provision of sustainable transport solutions that are efficient and inclusive and inextricably linked to spatial planning in South Africa's cities. To such ends, both the National Development Plan and the National Transport Master Plan, NetMap 2050, provide that South Africa should invest in transport infrastructure in order to support its economic growth and social development goals. Program Director, the transport sector makes an important contribution to South Africa's gross domestic product. This contribution has potential to increase exponentially once we achieve certain levels of competitiveness and efficiency in the sector. These are interventions we are focused on implementing as we accelerate the implementation of our policy trajectory to achieve greater efficiencies and advance structural reforms in subsectors like your rail, your road, maritime, aviation, and public transport. Stats SA reports that South Africa's real gross domestic product had increased by 2.0% in 2022, following an increase of 4.9% in 2021. The transport, storage, and communication sectors reported a growth of 8.6% and contributed 0.6% points to the GDP. These sectors contributed an added value of approximately 362.5 billion rand to our GDP in 2022. It should thus be understood that the sector had contributed an added value of over 300 billion rand in past years. In 2020, the decrease in value-added business reflects the pandemic year, in which restrictions for operations were applied in the transport sector. In addition, the latest Stats GDP results for the first quarter of 2023 shows that the transport, storage, and communication industry increased by 1.1%, contributing 0.1 of percentage points to GDP growth. Program Director, government has developed and continues to implement the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan since October 2020 in order to contribute to recovery from the negative effects of COVID-19 on the economy, prioritizing infrastructure spending as critical to speeding up economic growth. Government has introduced initiatives that seek to improve the scale, speed, and efficiency of infrastructure spending by creating a pipeline of priority projects, doing projects appraisals, and attracting private sector participation and financing. The first 62 priority infrastructure projects were gazetted in 2020, and more than 340 billion rand of funding has been committed from the private sector. An additional 51 top priority infrastructure projects with a value of around 596 billion rand and with a funding gap of around 441 billion rand had been unveiled in 2021. Our agencies have continued to show commitment to the stated imperative of infrastructure build in order to respond to the job creation calls and easing the cost of travel, while also developing industries in the area of infrastructure development. The South African National Road Agency, SANRAL, our state-owned company responsible for construction and maintenance of the national road network, is one of the key drivers of the country's economic recovery through its infrastructure build program. SANRAL's procurement policy requires that 30% of main upgrade projects is ring-fenced for SMMEs, notably youth and women-owned businesses, many of whom received their first experience in the construction and engineering sector by working on SANRAL projects. This 30% subcontracting policy will go a long way in mainstreaming previously disadvantaged groups into the road construction sector and other sectors in which SANRAL is active. And I must indicate that we are seeing some improvement in that regard. As a further demonstration of how SANRAL is assisting in the recovery of the country's economy, in 2022-2023 financial year, it awarded 320 tenders to the value of 51 billion rand, significantly up from the 22 billion rand worth tenders awarded in the preceding year. The spin-offs of such massive investments in road construction for the economy are immense. Equally, SANRAL extensive training and capacity building campaign that targets more than 40,000 SMMEs over 3 years period, and which will, among others, effectively teach them to submit compliant, competitive, and profitable tender, is also being implemented. We are also heartened to see SANRAL's commitment and drive to break down monopolies and ensure meaningful transformation that changes lives for the better. The Roads Agency has recently elevated transformation into one of its pillars of business operations over and above roads, mobility, road safety, and stakeholder engagement. And we have observed the resistance by some to the Roads Agency transformation efforts. As its shareholder representing government, let me just state that we are indeed supporting SANRAL's transformation efforts. Coming to issues related to road freight transport, freight transport is an important intermediate service in the production and delivery of most goods and services. Productivity growth in freight transportation has been and long been a driving force for economic growth in most countries. Freight transport is also the key driver of an optimal logistic and supply chain management system, which in turn supports growth in the domestic economy. The wide range of transportation services used in the economy includes for hire freight carriers, private transportation providers, freight forwarders, logistic providers, and firms that service and maintain vehicles. The busiest road freight corridor, that is between Gauteng and Durban, carries 29 million tons of cargo per annum, which is 80% of the total cargo that is moved by road. The primary road network is in a very good state of repair, but the provincial and of course our municipality roads network is of course not in really good condition. However, roads continue to degenerate as a result not only of lack of investment or lack of a sustained maintenance regime, but also due to burden caused by freight transportation, including the transportation not meant to be on roads. And this morning session that I've had excited me because I think it begins to address this problem that I'm raising. The roads are generally perceived to be responding well to the demands of the freight industry in terms of flexibility to attend to client requirements, short turnaround times, and enable sophisticated transport logistics systems that respond to complex client supply requirements. However, cargo that must be on our roads, it has to be the road-friendly cargo and not rail-friendly cargo. We therefore think that road freight movement places a serious fiscal burden on government, particularly where heavy vehicle overload is concerned. And it is therefore urgent that we address this matter. As far as I'm concerned, it can no longer be postponed. I've said a lot about SANRAL, but if we do nothing today about the movement of rail cargo freight, in fact, rail-friendly freight, moving it from road to rail. If we do nothing, we're going to see our state-owned company that is performing exceptionally good beginning to decline. That is why, as government, we are happy that Vulindlela is actually doing something about this. We are happy that NLCC, established by the president, is beginning to say, how do we implement the rail policy? And the rail policy is very clear on what needs to be done. And as we implement the rail policy, some of these challenges will actually not be our tomorrow's challenges and today's challenges. I'm happy that already there is a road map towards ensuring that this matter is addressed. Unlike maybe in the past, we didn't have a roadmap. Now there's a roadmap. It is up to us that we implement it. We cannot speak of road freight without mentioning of its governance across our borders, as in the facilitation of cross-border freight and passenger transportation, a function which has been improving in leaps and bounds for the Cross-Border Road Transport Agency, which is CPRTA, which is also among those of our companies turning 25 years this year. And I want to believe that when we are invited for the celebration of their 25 years, we'll get to know more about CPRTA. I also will want to say something about our integrated public transport network, which also is about infrastructure that we are building in the transport sector. Implementation of the IPTNs, which is integrated public transport networks, is central to the functioning of hubs of economic activity, as they provide sustainable, affordable, and functional transport solutions to urban commuters. By mid-2020, 7 cities were already operational. Many of us refer to this as a BRT, bus rapid transport, but as a matter of fact, it's much bigger than that. We're already operating this in my city, in Cape Town, Western Cape, Rea Vaya in Johannesburg, Arieng in Pretoria, Go George in George, Harambi in Ekurhuleni, Limpopo in the Eastern Cape, and Liatola Polokwane in Polokwane, that is Limpopo. And I just want to say that this is, of course, the National Department of Transport project, which we are implementing. It's a flagship project. We're learning lessons as we implement it, but of course it is about that important infrastructure again that we believe it is contributing into the GDP of the country. Coming to passenger rail, I just want also to mention that we have got PRASA that is responsible for passenger rail. It is restoring passenger rail services and fulfilling its primary mandate to move people. Over the past year, PRASA has gained ground in its efforts to recover the passenger rail network, rebuild commuter rail corridors, and move commuters on the new modern trains, isitimela sabantu. We have blue trains that we are manufacturing here in South Africa. And I emphasize this point because many of us may not be aware that the trains that we are operating now, the blue, beautiful trains that we're operating now and that we are launching, are not imported, but we are manufacturing them here in South Africa, here at Ekurhuleni. Today, we also celebrate PRASA's milestone in restoring the passenger rail network, progressing towards positioning rail as the backbone of our public transport system. We proudly announce that to date, 18 corridors have been recovered out of the 40 corridors operated by PRASA, with a total of 230 stations refurbished to basic functionality. Trains are running in major cities such as Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, Pretoria, and Ekurhuleni. By the end of this financial year, PRASA will have recovered 80% of the commuter rail corridors while introducing new modern trains manufactured in Ekurhuleni. The recent reopening on some of the corridors is a testimony to the work that PRASA is doing. Ladies and gentlemen, just recently we launched the Liraila to Germiston and Durban to Mangcu corridors that I recently attended. Commuters told us a lot of good stories. One of the commuters in the corridor between Liraila to Germiston said to us, she works for eClicks and another one for Pick and Pay. They told us a story that per month they were spending something like 1,900 rand. Today, they are spending only 300 rand, thanks to the recovery of that corridor. Another one told us in Durban that she was actually spending something like 120 rand from Stanger to Durban by taxi, but today she is only spending 11 rand 50 in a train. This could not have been possible without government subsidizing the cost of running the services and ensuring that PRASA provides a reliable, safe, and affordable service. But also, it talks to the revitalization of those corridors, which by their nature are infrastructure revitalization. Also, we are involved in skills development and transformation. Our state-owned companies are actually ensuring that we do have skills in the transport sector, but also as the department, we have entered into quite a number of agreements with institutions of higher learning. We dictate to them because we give them our money, and we therefore dictate to them the skills that we require at a particular time. For instance, we engaged Wits University when we realized that we don't have aeronautical engineers, and we said we're giving you our money so that we can fund students and give bursaries to students who would want to become aeronautical engineers. When I talk about this one, I always tell people that when you are an aeronautical engineer, you don't have to tell people that you are educated. All that you have to say is that I'm an aeronautical engineer, sit down, then people know that you are educated. But this is the work that you are doing, we are doing in the University of Zululand, Ongoye. We have faculty, if you want, in Richards Bay, Durban University of Technology for maritime training, Johannesburg University for engineering and construction and civil engineering. This is what we are doing in order to ensure that we don't run short of the skills that we require, because we believe that transport sector does require technical skills, and we are trying just to do that. And we believe that we can do more in that regard. Just want also, in passing, to say something about one other subject that is in my heart, which is maritime. And I just want to mention again that South Africa is a maritime country. We are a port state, but we are not as yet a flag state. And we're looking forward towards being a flag state, where we have vessels that are flying South Africa's flag. We have got about 6 today. From North, we're happy, but we will celebrate when we have at least 50 vessels that are flying South Africa's flag. There's a lot to benefit out of that, because our flag is a white flag. We're able to dictate to whoever is coming to register his or her vessel in South Africa that these are the conditions. You're going to employ people from South Africa as crew, and you're going to open offices here and employ our South Africans. But also you're going to repair your vessel here in South Africa. And that is why we're looking forward to that level. And that is why we're also engaging our counterparts on issues that we think are preventing easy registration of vessels, including vets to those who would want to engage in fact, register their vessels. The Ports Regulator of South Africa, through the tariff application process, has enabled Transnet National Ports Authority to raise funding of about 14 billion rand in the 2023-2024 financial year. It is through this tariff methodology that the authority must create jobs, improve existing and build new infrastructure to address port inefficiencies. And today's meeting also gave me a lot of hope. We have the NPCC, National Ports Consultative Committee, which advises the Minister of Transport on issues that pertain to all our ports. But of course, we are not the shareholding department, and we therefore are engaging our counterparts on those areas, and we are happy that we now have the presidency coordinating the work of our ports, so that our Durban port, our Richards Bay port, our Cape Town port, our national assets, which are in the form of ports, begin to take their rightful place in the continent. And we believe that this is possible particularly if we all work together. I also probably will want to just remind us that we're sitting here today discussing these issues just a day after yesterday we're celebrating the 2023 IMO World Maritime Day under the theme MAPOL at 50, our commitment goes on. The celebration acknowledges the accomplishment and progress made over the past 5 decades in reducing maritime or marine pollution and promoting sustainable practices within the maritime industry. We are there participating as South Africa at IMO. And maybe let me just say that in December, either myself or the Deputy Minister will be attending the assembly. We were voted out in 2021. We want to go back to IMO Council. And we believe that the work that we are doing in lobbying for South Africa's re-election probably is going to give us positive results. It is a steep hill because for 20 seats, there are 26 countries that are contesting. Remember, there are already 20 who are in the council. We are contesting from outside. It definitely is not easy. I can tell you, if I can close the doors here, that Nigeria was voted out. I think it must have been in 2012 or even before that. They've been trying to go back and it has not been happening. So it is a steep hill to campaign from outside. But we have confidence that it is possible for South Africa to retain its position because indeed we are one of the countries that are located in the busiest route, which is the Cape Route, which connects east and west, and it is important that we make contributions in that important body. The last I will want to talk to is civil aviation. Aviation plays a vital role to international trade. There is no tourism without aviation. And of course, there is no aviation without tourism. Investment as well. Investors will have to fly to South Africa. They don't swim, they don't ride bicycles, they have to fly to South Africa, as well as transportation of people, goods and services. The aviation sector consists of airlines, airports, air navigation, and other ground services that make up the air infrastructure. But also aviation includes the regulation of our aviation sector. And I must indicate that as South Africa in this regard, we're not doing bad. We compete not only in the continent, but at the world level. South Africa is also regarded as one of the leading countries in implementing the latest commercial aviation industry system, such as advanced passenger information and interactive passenger name record. So people are able now to apply for permits and everything online. And we are one country in the continent, very few countries in the world that are already doing this, thanks to the work that we're doing in the aviation sector. South Africa has the busiest airline routes in Africa, with 6 of the top 10 routes being South Africa. The route from OR Tambo International Airport to Cape Town International Airport is the busiest route, followed by Johannesburg to King Shaka International Airport route in South Africa. And many of our airports are rated the best in the continent. When we compare with the airports in the continent, you actually count your Cape Town, your King Shaka, your OR Tambo, and many of our regional airports rating the best in the continent, and one after the other. And therefore, in that regard, we're doing well. But we then say, well, how are we performing at international level? And I want to believe that now that COVID is behind us, we are going to take our rightful place, because for quite some time we've been rated amongst the top 30 best performing airports. We've declined a little bit thanks to COVID-19, but I'm happy that yesterday's AGM confirmed to us that we are now moving towards the right direction. We have the entity that at some stage was not collecting anything. Now it is making some surplus. And this is what is happening in the aviation sector. The South African airport network consists of 135 licensed airports, 19 military airports, and up to 1,300 unlicensed aerodromes. 9 of the major airports are managed and operated by AXA on behalf of the Department of Transport, and I want to emphasize that point, that they're doing it on behalf of the department, National Department of Transport. AXA provides world-class aviation infrastructure at its airports. Our hotel at our airports are rated the best in the continent and amongst the best in the world. We receive awards year after year in that regard. But also, we are managing our air transport in South Africa, and we are responsible for about 60% of the world airspace. I mean 6%, my apologies, 6% of the world airspace. We're managing the best communication and surveillance in the airspace. The infrastructure that is there ensures that we have a record of 0% when it comes to air crashes. And I just want to emphasize the point that whilst we may have not had any commercial air crashes in South Africa, it does not happen by itself, but it happens because of the infrastructure that we put in place in our airspace. And the aviation people, they tell us that for us, we say the sky is the limit. For them, they say the sky is their offices because they operate from there. We've been audited by not only our Auditor General, we've been audited by US, we've been audited by ICAO, we've been audited by quite a number of international bodies. And I can tell you now, by ICAO just last year, we improved from 87.3% to 92%. We were given category 1 by US when they came to audit us. And this we say, but it is so important because if US had given us category 2, no aircraft today would be flying from South Africa to US. No aircraft. And if US had given us category 2, Europe would have then said, we're coming to audit you. And with the idea that we are going to fail that audit. When that happens, it would mean that there is no aircraft that would fly from South Africa to Europe. And therefore, some of these things, even if we announce them, and probably make no sense, but they mean so much. They mean so much in the contribution in the economy of South Africa, because now we have got all the airlines. When somebody questions us, we tell them that, look here, we've just been audited by ICAO. We improved. We are number 1 in the continent by far. We are amongst the top 20 in the world in terms of our performance when it comes to safety. And therefore, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, we acknowledge that public sector capacity to implement projects and meet the growing infrastructure need is currently inadequate, thus compelling us to collaborate with the private sector actions to provide efficient and sustainable transport infrastructure. Public-private partnerships have the potential to close the infrastructure gap by leveraging scarce public funding and introducing private sector technology and innovation, and can be leveraged as an effective way to build and implement new transport infrastructure or to renovate, operate, maintain, or manage existing facilities, and can be a beneficial way to solve critical transportation problems. With us in the Department of Transport, we have the experience here. We know what concessionaires are. We know what to own an infrastructure and allow private operators to operate. It is already happening in the aviation. AXA is the landlord. Operators are operating, competing on an equal footing and basis, and this can be done elsewhere. Whether you talk freight rail, we believe it can be done. We can share our experiences, and life can continue, and the freight rail will be moved from road to rail. From road to rail, and I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minister Chikunga. I think there's so much that most of us have learned, but as we've mentioned before, and I think reiterated by my colleague, Franz Machate, as a fourth estate, it's our duty to provide such platforms so that we bridge the gap between the great work that happens within your department that needs to be communicated to the citizens of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to open for questions and answer session. I just need to check how we're doing on time. So I'll take about 4 questions per round. And my humble request is that you introduce yourself by name as well as either an entity you represent or a media house that you represent. Do we have any questions? Okay, let's take you first.
Been complaining specifically on the inability for rail to transport coal. What plans have been made to ensure, and I know you've touched a little on it in your speech earlier, but what measures have been put into place to ensure that this coal transportation can be done by the railway and we don't lose out on that one? They're claiming that it's threatening over 35,000 livelihoods within the sector.
Thank you. Do we have any hands? Okay, we'll take you at the back.
Good morning, my name is Bobby from PSA. Minister, I would like to speak on this issue of public transport. It's always manned by strikes.
Should I ask you to come closer? Thank you. One last question before we afford the Minister the opportunity to respond. Okay.
I just wanted to know all the cells like AXA and all of them, all have facility that they have to cover facility management. I just wanted to know, is there any transformation agenda that is being discussed at the department? That's one, because you don't have access to everything. And number 2, are you able to talk about the bursaries and funding for like the on the aviation side? Is there a platform for the pilots that you are looking at? Because I think the last time we discussed it, we have not been able to see our students being assistance in the aviation space and the pilots.
I'm very happy that CEO Mpumo is here. Please, can you respond just on this one question? Yes.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Minister, thank you for the opportunity. What do you have to do? Oh, thank you very much. Thanks, Minister, for the opportunity. The overall transformation program, particularly in the aviation space, has really reached highly satisfying levels. At Airports Company South Africa, we have a very aggressive transformation program. We are driven by a very clearly set target on our KPIs of achieving 55% of black business of total commercial revenue So if I want to keep my job, I have to perform at those levels. That increases to 60% in the following year. And by definition, that means all of the commercial operations we run at Airports Company South Africa have to operate on that basis. We are in this year poised to renew after COVID a lot of the commercial operations at the airport platform. We recently went out on a tender for our ground handling, and that was successfully allocated. But let me also indicate that as part of the COVID recovery strategy, as Airports Company ourselves, we are looking at clawing back a lot of the businesses that we previously had operated by private sector entities. But that's based on a proper evaluation of how we would benefit as AXA first, and how we would actually force empowerment and transformation in partnering, particularly with black companies, and ensuring that they work with us very directly. The very specific programs that are going to come through in this year and a half include the ground handling that's already been out. Our retail and commercial space is coming out very soon, and that's done again on a very transformative basis. Jet fuel is going to follow, and I think the question was asked about hydrocarbons. We are in the process of basically allocating particular oil companies across our platforms to supply jet fuel. Just to close the gap in an interim, I'm sure a lot of you would know that we had BP, which pulled out of the jet fuel space in South Africa. And so we've had a program to replace them in the interim, but we're coming out on this big tender that will ensure major transformation of the jet fuel supply space. The other include commercial property, and we are designated to develop aerotropolis developments in the 3 Golden Triangle airports, OR Tambo, Cape Town, and King Shaka. But finally, the really interesting question is about hydrogen. We've developed a hydrogen strategy, and we are the pilot for the Department of Science and Innovation in relation to hydrogen manufacturing and production. They have designated what they call a hydrogen corridor that includes Polokwane, and we think around the airport. We have submitted ourselves as OR Tambo and King Shaka as defining that hydrogen corridor. By definition, because we have experience in jet fuel management, we believe we are best placed to manage hydrogen distribution. We have coerced our Department of Transport to place us as the central manufacturing and distribution point for hydrogen. And we are embarking on this exercise with great enthusiasm, and we are absolutely certain this is one area that will be based on transformation in order to allow for participation. Let me just indicate, for jet aircraft, the determination globally is that we will not see any aircraft operating on a hybrid basis until 2035. And this comes from Rolls-Royce and the major aircraft manufacturers. So that kind of gives us a lot of leeway to understand exactly when the first aircraft will be ready to use hydrogen. But in the interim, we've decided that we're going to change our operating systems into hydrogen-based. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Minister, the Ria Vaya buses that are operating today have big heads like this. And I'm sure you've all seen the design of that bus. That big head is actually hydrogen tanks. So in South Africa, we're already operating systems of hybrid between hydrogen and diesel, which are currently operational. So what we've then done on the excellence of this Ria Vaya bus is to then look at all other systems in the airport platform, and that includes our tugs, our buses, our baggage systems, our smart technology systems that can complement with hydrogen operations. And then that complementarity of extensive aviation systems, we are going to first move into that with hydrogen whilst waiting for the 2035 date, during which we'll be able to fuel aircraft. And again, big opportunity for black business participation in that space, but also just looking at opportunities across the platform. We are responsible for 9 airports as Airports Company South Africa, but we've also been given the mandate to help municipal airports that are struggling We are responsible for Richards Bay Airport. We are responsible for Vanderboom Airport in Pretoria, and many others that are to come. We also have airports on the African continent that we have signed agreements on. We are the go-to airports management company on the continent, no doubt about that. And in fact, Minister, as we were discussing at the AGM, the Brazil concession continues whilst we've exited India, but in Brazil we will continue to operate. And that also gives those opportunities extending to the airports we control outside of South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I can tell you that our 3 state-owned companies in the aviation sector are led by women. She's one of them. She's there, Poppy Koza. She's a woman, young. She has not arrived. Yes, she's here also representing ATNS. It's women, and they're doing exceptionally good job. And we're very happy about that. And we say it and we support them. We do it with everything we have because we believe that they are important. In the truck sector, we have the president of TASA. She's a woman. She's sitting just behind you. We're happy about that. We're transforming the sector. Rail to transport, what are we doing? Rail to transport, what are we doing about that? And particularly issues related to coal from Emelo and Mpumalanga to Richards Bay. I fully agree with NUMSA that it should definitely not be on road, it should be on rail. And it's a rail-friendly cargo. And that is why ourselves, and now I'm happy Vulindlela and the NLCC established by the president, we are saying all that we have to do is to implement the national rail policy. And I'm happy that there is now a roadmap that actually breaks down everything that needs to be done. And the issues now are that when are we starting to do that? And for me, I say as soon as today, because we have got to remove those coals from road to rail so that we can preserve N2. Because N2 today is in a bad shape thanks to those trucks, because even if it is a national road, but it was never meant for the number of trucks that are now being operated on that road. So yes, that's my support. Of course, there is a project already to rehabilitate that road. It's going to be a state-of-the-art again, but we cannot be able to maintain and sustain that, and that is why we need to move that. So I agree fully with that. The road infrastructure is in bad shape. Our national roads, in fact, our municipality roads. Let me say this. When you stand here, you say, I'm the Minister of Transport. Indeed, I am. Am I responsible for 750,000 kilometer road network? I wish I was, but I'm not, but I am. Because in South Africa, you have 288 road authorities. I'm the first one through SANRAL with national roads. 9 provinces have got provincial roads, and therefore, in terms of the constitution, it is a Schedule 5 competency. It's therefore an exclusive responsibility. I can't wake up and find a provincial premier working on a national road. I will take him to court, because in terms of the constitution, they cannot. I cannot, whether I like it or not, wake up on another day, say to SANRAL, go and maintain that road or construct that road. I've got to get a permission from the province, because it is an exclusive responsibility in terms of Schedule 5 of the Constitution. It's the same thing with the municipalities and so on. So you have got that 288 road authorities. Is it working? I'm not very sure. Personally, I think it would have worked better if I was responsible for 750,000 road network that we have in South Africa. Why are we saying we're 750,000? Why do we know? It's because the situation is, but our roads are proclaimed in South Africa. So we know our roads. We know where they are. We know their conditions. I know for sure the road that has got some potholes, and I know the road that is being repaired right now because our roads are proclaimed. So when you say my road is bad, I say which road? I expect you to say P1 su or N1 ra 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 or R ra 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 because they are proclaimed. It's not the case in the continent. And that is why we are number 11 in the world in terms of the length of our road network, because we know our roads. The next country behind South Africa is number 35, and that is Nigeria, with a road network of about 165,000 kilometers. But look at the size of the country. Look at the size. If you look at DRC, for instance, their road network is about 5,000 kilometers. Look at the size of DRC. But we know we are 750,000 kilometers because our roads are proclaimed. That is something positive about us, that our roads are proclaimed. And therefore, we know the shape and the state of our roads. Our national roads, in fact, let me say maybe before our national roads, our paved roads or tarred roads, if you like, they are 159,000 kilometers. They put us at number 19 in the world. Number 19 in the world in terms of the length of those roads. Which are the countries that are ahead of us? And which are the countries when it comes to number 11 of the 750,000, the total network? It's your US, it's your China, it's your India, it's your Brazil, it's the developed world. And I can tell you now, if you check, even Europe, still, in fact, US, they still have gravel roads. In fact, of the 6.8 million kilometer road network they have, 2 million is gravel. 2 million kilometers is still gravel. So we're not as bad as all that. What are we doing about that? We're putting quite a number of measures. We are saying we've got to patch potholes. We've got to maintain our roads. The challenge about road network is that you construct a road today with money, a lot of money for that matter, but you still have to budget for maintenance. If you've not budgeted for maintenance, that road is not going to live its life. So it is very expensive, and that is why it hurts. It hurts me when you see people complaining about water, then they ban the road. Because they're actually saying tomorrow there will be a pothole where there was a tire. And it actually means that we've got to spend yet other billions rand. If you're constructing a road, just a kilometer will not be anything less than 10 million rands. And you ban the 10 million rands. So these are the things that are there. And so we think they're doing something. We are patching our potholes. We are transferring roads to Sanral. We have said from their portfolio of 23,559 kilometers, we will want them to increase their road network to 35,000 kilometers and not anything more than that, so that they're able to maintain those roads. We're happy that provinces, Free State, for instance, have transferred some of the roads. Others are still, negotiating and so on. Others prefer an MOU arrangement where they say we give you money, go and maintain our road with our money, but we're not handing over the road. That can be done, of course, and each time that happens, of course, we take that opportunity and we maintain those roads. And we also have said some of the roads in Mpumalanga, for instance, they're being damaged by the many trucks owned by the private sector, and we're saying to private sector, please adopt those roads, so that you maintain them. They remain our roads, public roads, and therefore we are accountable for anything and liable, but for the maintenance, please maintain those roads, because they are never and will never be meant for the traffic that is suddenly using the roads. That will be the road infrastructure. And what are you doing as a way of recovering post-COVID-19? I think amongst the things that the CEO mentioned here, they also talk to the recovery that is now happening post-COVID-19. In post-COVID-19, people will think about, I want to sit down now. I emphasize the issue of aviation, but when people were not moving between provinces, what was happening on our toll plazas? There were no cars that were passing by. So nobody was paying. And therefore Central was not collecting. And this is what was happening. But immediately after the pandemic, there's an expectation that Central should have money, but Central was not collecting because there were no cars that were moving. If you were to leave Johannesburg, you had to get a permission or lie and get whatever that you say. So I just want to say, and you could still use other routes. Remember, there will always be other routes. On the issues of transformation, I think the CEO covered that very well. But I just want also to say that amongst the people that will be here today are pilots that we sent to France at our cost to train in France. They came back with the highest qualification in the training of pilots. Our pilots here that we send to academies that we don't own, our black pilots never make it. You send the same black pilots from rural schools and rural areas to France, they come back. 5 are leaving again this year. They will also be amongst us. We're sending them back to France. It's expensive. It would have worked better in South Africa, but it's worth doing it because one thing I'm happy about is that the 4 that have come back, they are now employed, and we're sending 8 to France for training. What it means, you can actually count 8 plus 5. It's 13 people that we have trained within a year. We are making it. We are doing it. We just don't sing the songs that we're supposed to be singing. It's not this gloom and bad story. There is a lot that is positive that is happening in South Africa. There is a lot. When we go to the world, people respect us. When we speak in the highest platforms in the aviation sector, people respect us. They respect these CEOs that are sitting here. They are occupying positions in the international bodies, your ICI, your IMO, your ICAO, and so on and so forth. Your councils, they're occupying those spaces because people see good in them, which we don't see in South Africa. All that we see is negativity. I am saying there's so much that is good. People see where they expect us to sell the continent to them, the parts of trains from South Africa. We're not aware that we actually can be selling parts to the continent as South Africa. These old yellow trains, the continent, they want to buy them because they will use them for their trains, as passenger trains. We're not aware of that. We don't even see the beautiful trains that we are operating now. They are very beautiful. You see them in the most developed countries. We are making them here in South Africa. In Ekurhuleni, we have people that are employed there. The infrastructure that was damaged during COVID-19 when we're not operating, it is engineers, the best engineers that we're producing here in South Africa, that are rehabilitating those railway lines. The biggest and the largest and the long and the highest bridges that we're building in Msikaba and Mtento in the Eastern Cape, that the world has recognized. I think they were in one of the catalogs. I can't remember the name of that catalog. They were actually being in that catalog as these best bridges that are being built in South Africa, not by other people, but our own excellent quality engineers that we're producing. They're happening here in South Africa. The interchanges that you see in South Africa, that you think you'll see them in some countries of the developed countries, they are here in South Africa. In Montrose, you're no longer going to find a car that is waiting to turn to R103. No, we've created that interchange, and that impact on road safety, and of course it impact positively on road safety, because there will not now be a car that is waiting to turn and there's another car and then there's an accident. It's no longer going to happen like that. It is happening here in South Africa. The only thing that we need to do is to wake up and see the positives and to speak about the positive so that the investors can actually come to South Africa. Because when we think that all that we have to do is to be negative, I sit down, somebody says in Brazil, oh, let me not say the country, somebody says in another country, says, there is a lot of crime in South Africa, a lot of crime. And I was in South Africa for 2 weeks. I never saw any crime, but there's a lot of crime in South Africa. I am in Brazil. Somebody have taken my bag and this and that and so on, but there's no crime in Brazil. And I said, but what is this? He says, no, but because South Africans, they say negative things about themselves. All that they say is that there's crime in South Africa. Where there's crime, people don't say there's crime. They will tell you that, don't go there. And they will not tell you as to why you should not go there. I say things that they say when we go to their countries. No, don't go there. But they will never tell you that is because there are criminals there. If you are in a country such as DRC and you're getting the interpretation because they speak French, they will say to you, don't go there because they are stealers.
Thank you, Minister. Do we have a last round of questions? We'll start with you.
Thank you so much, Musidi. Allow me to take off my National Press Club hat and put on that media hat. Minister, I think my questions will be around the railways. So we have seen the restoration of the railway lines and recovery of the damaged railway system. So how long is it going to take for the full recovery of that sector? And I think I hear there are some talks about the high-speed trains, interprovincial high-speed trains. How soon can we see such? And I think lastly, road safety, I think it's one of the killers in South Africa. And when are we going to have very reduced road accidents? And what are the plans in doing that? Thank you so much.
Thank you. If there are no hands, I'll... Okay.
I was just following up on the one for the funding. I like the story of the 4 pilots that has been. We have taken one student here to try to assist in terms of the pilot, but we are able to recover the funds to get the student to be assisted to get that. And I don't know if the minister can maybe assist us in getting the student in that program.
Okay. I think those are the last ones.
Did you? Bobby, can you respond to that question? Uthi kune student abebesi-assista but abakhona, and then singangena nikulaba abawethu abayi-France kubuza that question.
Thank you, Minister. I had thought that the Minister had covered the issues of skills, but perhaps on the issues of funding in particular, not only do we fund students who train in France, but we are also funding, in fact, majority of our BESAs are trained in South Africa because South Africa has the best schools, and the licenses that are issued by South Africa are well respected. In fact, Minister, I was just looking at Google now. You know, these frequently asked questions, and someone was saying the commercial pilot licenses of South Africa are well recognized and well respected worldwide, which of course is a testimony when you see how much other countries are in fact poaching the pilot license holders from South Africa. But we are giving bursaries. The 8 whom we are sending to France, as the Minister had indicated, is really because we are trying all systems. South Africa, you would find that to train as a pilot will take much longer. And we are also trying to benchmark and see how it works in other countries, particularly the black pilots, whom we believe that structurally there's something fundamentally wrong, where it will take much longer to train in South Africa as opposed to other countries. So, but we are also leveraging on the MOUs that our governments have with other countries as well, to see how best can they assist us. I would urge that whoever that wants to be a beneficiary of the bursaries, they be on the lookout, because we do advertise on an ongoing basis. I think another advert will be going out now in November. But of course, the students or aspiring pilots, they must perform exceptionally well, particularly in mathematics as well as science, not maths literacy, because it's a highly technical environment which requires high levels of competence. But we do issue bursaries. It's very expensive. It will take, for one to be trained as a commercial pilot license, for instance, as a region between 600,000 to 1.2 million. So just for one. And we've been giving these bursaries to about 91 bursars, and we are increasing, as the minister was indicating, that we will be sending. In fact, they are starting on the 2nd of October, which is next week. They are leaving this, no, they are starting on the 3rd of October, and they are leaving on over the weekend, or on Monday, if I'm not mistaken. But we are continuing on a yearly basis. Please be on the lookout. We advertise on our social media platforms, and we are committed to the transformation agenda. Thank you very much.
Good morning to the Minister and members of the media, CEOs. My name is Mangcu Makaipia. I'm the DDG responsible for rail transport. With regard to the question on corridor recovery, we are hard at work in terms of the work that we are doing with PRASA, based on the destruction of rail network that has happened. You'll know that we have 40 operational lines within our corridors, and out of those, we have now recently recovered 20 of those lines with the recent lines that we have opened, especially in Leralla and Jimiston. And we have this week actually opened the Captain Park line from Pretoria. So in terms of our plans, by 2024-25, we'll have finished opening all our 40 corridors. And some of the efforts that we are implementing is really looking at the station recovery program and the signaling, so that we are able to run the kind of headways that we need with regard to the trains. We've actually made some progress that in terms of the new rolling stock program, we've actually produced 146 train set, which we have not really all deployed in those particular elements. So that's the work that we are doing with PRASA. And I think for the first time in a number of years, with this bill program, PRASA have actually gone beyond the capital subsidy that has been allocated, and we are working very well with all those that are involved, including the railway safety regulator, to ensure that we get the necessary corridor approvals to be able to run to our trains. With regard to the high-speed rail, it's one of the modes or the elements of rail that we want to implement, which is pronounced in the white paper on national rail transport that the minister has talked to. But key is how do we then get a mechanism in line to then prioritize our corridors in terms of the dream and the issue that has been mentioned by the president. And as the Department of Transport, one, we have developed the high-speed rail framework, which uses a multi-criteria matrix that determines the element that prioritize those corridors. So with regard to that framework, one, we have been able to categorize them in terms of priority. The first priority being Durban to Johannesburg, the second one being Johannesburg to Mbombela, the third one being the Polokwane route. So where we are now, we'll be presenting it to Cabinet, but we're engaging in terms of the feasibility studies that we'll be able to deal with. We're engaging already with the Gauteng and Limpopo province on the Limpopo one, but plans again are in course to deal with the Durban one. So that's basically how far we are. We know they are very capital intense project. which will really have to do them in partnership with the private sector. Thanks very much.
When are we likely to see the restoration of the long distance train? I think I'm very passionate about that because I think the first time I came to Gauteng around 1990s, late 1990s, I used a train, a long distance train, and those trains are really no longer there. Are we going to see the restoration of such? And the 40 corridors that you're talking about, that you are going to, you are making sure that by 2024, 2025, they'll all be restored. Is it nationally or are you only talking about Gauteng? Thank you so much.
Thanks. In terms of the corridors that we are talking about, it's really in our at a national level. You'll remember that in terms of rail, the footprint in terms of the region where we fully operate is in KwaZulu-Natal, in Western Cape, and in Gauteng. So it covers really a vast of those provinces that we are doing work. So it's really where we are running, how do we then ramp up to make sure that we move into full service, including, like I said, some of the key elements, including the signaling and the work that we want to do. So that's basically that. With regard to long distance passenger rail, you remember that one we were obviously affected by the vandalism on the rail network because we share the same network with the freight rail in terms of long distance passenger rail. So there's work happening in that regard. But the challenges again that we are having within PRASA is that the long span in terms of the fleet that we've been using, it's really old, but we are engaged and we have allocated within PRASA what we call a general overhaul contract. That one of the elements is to really work on those trains and make sure that they are operationable, and we are working on a process lastly to make sure that we get proper locomotives to be able to deal with that. We are already periodically running obviously the two lines, which is seasonal, which is Johannesburg to Musina, and we are running the Eastern Cape line on those particular lines. But we have plans obviously to be able to make sure that we on-ramp and deal with those things. The high-speed rail in one way or another becomes another contributory element towards our long-distance passenger rail network in that regard. Thank you very much.
Maybe Thank you very much. Maybe on the road safety question, but maybe before I respond to that, I just want to say something about skills and training. As the CEO of SACA has indicated that we're sending some students aid to France. Again, just this month, we're sending some to World Maritime University for master's degrees in maritime, because this is yet another very highly technical and specialized area. It requires skills. So we are investing on skills development. I was just signing one other approval yesterday of a student from the department, in fact, of our employee who's also going to World Maritime University, 14 months, a master's degree in any of the specialities in the maritime sector. So we're doing it. We started, I think, in 2015 or even earlier than that. We've been sending students. When we started, we sent 29, but of course it is expensive. Sweden is expensive. And when we send them, we ask whoever is sending them to continue giving them their salaries, but we also give them some stipends, because with the salary in South Africa, they just cannot cope because Sweden is expensive. I always tell people that I was in Canada, I lost my luggage, so I had to go. In fact, it got lost, and I was supposed to go and attend the assembly, and I didn't have anything to wear. So we went to try and get something to wear. A dress, this one, a dress that you would get at PEP in South Africa at 399 rand. There it was not anything less than 9,000 rand. A shoe that would get at 400 rand, it was not anything less than 9,000 rand. So we said, where is the Marabastad here? So they took us to Marabastad, and I bought a second-hand shoe, but worth 3,000 rand in South Africa, a second-hand shoe. I have it. It's brown in color. So the point I'm making is that we try and assist our employees and our students when we send them. So we've sent another team that's just this September to World Maritime University. Others, they are graduating. If we are able, we'll also attend their graduation. So there's a lot that we're doing in trying to ensure that we have skills, because the Department of Transport, in fact, the transport sector is a technical department, it's an engineering sector, technical sector, so you need those technical skills. On road safety, South Africa is a signatory to the United Nations flagship project, which is 2021-2030, a decade of action to halve road accidents. We are participating in that. And I'm happy the taxi industry, as a way of assisting us, then they have Sokomela, which also is a project that aims at reducing accidents. But other sectors, other companies as well, they have their own sectors. We are implementing as a department the road safety strategy, but also all our entities in the road sector, that is your Road Traffic Management Corporation, your Road Accident Fund, your SANRAL, your Cross-Border Road Transport Agency, your Road Traffic Infringement Agency. All of them, they have got some element of dealing with road safety because they are in the road sector. So they do have that, of course, with the RTMC being the lead entity in that regard. You will be surprised to know that even on our bad road, really poor, very poor roads, you don't have many accidents there. The accidents in South Africa and the top 20 most hazardous roads are our best roads. It's N2, it's N1 to Limpopo, it's N something, because people just get crazy and they drive like there's no tomorrow. They drive drunk. So it's yes, indeed the engineering part of that is an important part of what we need to do, but it's the human factor that accounts for 86 to 96% of all accidents on our roads. It's a person who is drunk. It's a person who thinks like there is no one else who's got a car other than him. The sense of entitlement, I can drive my car as I wish. Then we have got all these accidents. If you look at that bus accident that killed 24 people in Limpopo just about a week ago, it's somebody who decided to leave his side of the road or lane and cause a head-on collision. 24 people are dead, all of them in the bus, all of them employed. What does that mean to Road Accident Fund? It means the majority of those people, because only the driver of the bus and the driver of the truck that also died will not immediately claim for funeral benefits, but all others, they qualify to claim for funeral benefits. But all of them, because the majority of them were making, in fact, it's like all of them were working, including the drivers. It means all of them will also qualify to claim the loss of support, and their families to claim the loss of support benefits. That immediately puts a lot of strain on the Road Accident Fund, because none of those families will go to the owner of the truck, whether the truck was wrong, or go to the owner of the bus. They go to the Road Accident Fund and claim compensation from the Road Accident Fund. And that is why I get worried whenever people see the increase in petrol and so on. Then they say, no, let's do away with Road Accident Fund. And I always say, do away with the Road Accident Fund. It means that my son, your son, and I say son because it's our sons that are dying in the main on the roads because they have cars and so on and so forth. What it means, if they've caused that accident, that family will have to come to me and claim compensation from me and no longer to Road Accident Fund. If that was to happen in South Africa, the taxi industry, for instance, and I can tell you now, they are not, if you look at the figures, the accidents, the taxi industry, they're very low. It's just that when the accident happens and it is a taxi, it will be a number of people that will die. It will be 8 people because it's a taxi. If it is a small car, it will be whatever. But the fact of the matter is, all of them, they will go to Road Accident Fund to claim for compensation. And that is why Road Accident Fund is an important body. And that is why it is important that we listen and hear what the Road Accident Fund, and we should be worried when whatever that we're introducing, it is the lawyers, I'm sorry if there are lawyers here, it is the lawyers that cry first. As if Road Accident Fund is meant for lawyers. Road Accident Fund is meant for road accident victims and not lawyers. And there is no lawyer who goes to university for 4 years to study just one act, Road Accident Fund. There isn't. So they've got a right to practice everywhere, but of course assist victims where it is necessary. But Road Accident Fund is meant for victims of road accidents and not lawyers. Thank you.
This is where we leave it with the questions and answer session. Ananias Ndlovu, I almost said Ananias Matu. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Dumela. I know I'm used to it. Ananias Mate. Wherever I go, Ananias Mate. So, but yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm Ananias Ndlovu, not Mate. So mine is that part. Mine is a small one, and it's a closure. And to say to you guys, I'm from the National Press Club. And we are happy and so delighted to host the minister. And we are a working press club, I must say. On Wednesday, we hosted the French embassy. Yesterday, we had the media briefing. Today, we are hosting a minister. Next month, we are hosting the Argentinian ambassador. And the most important one, the one that made me to come here, is the Percy Koboza lecture. And I'm saying to you, media colleagues, if you are not part of the press club, please, the secretariat is here, join. Communicators, if you are not part, join. And institutions, companies, government, please engage us, call us, and we'll host you like this. We are establishing other chapters in the Northwest, Limpopo, and in Joburg. So it says, if we have some activities in the Northwest, talk to us. If something in Limpopo, talk to us. So mine is to make this announcement, and the one I'm pushing is Percy Koboza lecture. We are hosting it on the 19th of October in UNISA. It's a collaboration between the University of South Africa and the National Press Club. Those who don't know Percy Koboza, he was one of the greatest journalists in the country, the editor of The World and the World Weekend. In 1977, 19 October, his publications and other organizations pushing black consciousness were banished by the apartheid government. So we call that Black Wednesday. We like to wear black as media guys on that day, just to remember that day, 19 October 1976. So, ladies and gentlemen, join us in UNISA, and those who are not part of the press club, please. Thank you.
This brings us to the end of the formalities. Once again, our word of appreciation to Minister Chikunga, as well as the Deputy Minister, and their teams, as well as all the other transport stakeholders that have joined this morning's session. We hope it's the beginning of many more to come. And I'd like to challenge you, Minister, to please engage us post your budget speech. I think what you've shared with us this morning, it did not only stay in our minds, but you touched our hearts as well. I think we have a better understanding of not only the work that lies ahead, but the challenges as well. With those few words, we thank everybody for being part of this morning's session. And I believe there's breakfast post the formalities. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sisi. Thank you.